Welcome to Contractor Cuts, where we cover the good, the bad, and the ugly of growing a successful contracting company.
Welcome to Contractor Cuts. My name is Clark Turner.
I'm Jared Flo.
Thank you for joining us again this week. So today we are talking about coaching, and I know that we are coaches, and you think we're trying to push coaching, but what we want to do is lay out, no matter what type of company you are, whether you are a handyman, HVAC company, welder, cabinet company, door company, general contractor, commercial, whatever you do in the construction industry, our systems are built for you.
Yep.
We are general contractors. We came up, 18, 19 years now doing general contracting. I've started and ran an HVAC company. We've done some other things as well. And what we wanted to do is dive in today on how the coaching works. And even if you're not going through coaching, kind of the 4 steps that we take in terms of helping you understand how to grow your company and what we do kind of on the back end as coaches.
That's right. That's right.
So we're starting, before we actually dive into this, we want to also let y'all know that Bootcamp, we talk about the business Bootcamp for contractors, that is starting up real soon, probably I think end of this week, but wanted to let everyone know, go ahead and get signed up for it. Even if you've missed it, if you're listening to this late beyond the release date of this podcast, we have Bootcamp starting every probably once a month, every other month, something like that. So go ahead and get signed up. We're launching our summer boot camp right now, and it might be the last one we do for a while, as we'll probably take a break over the winter and fall. But go ahead and get signed up. Check it out on our website, prostruct360.com. Love to have you there. It is 12 weeks. Every Friday morning, you spend an hour with us on a live Zoom where we go through the basic fundamentals of building your company. It's really where we start with coaching with most people, but we've heard a lot of feedback. Hey, I'm not quite ready for coaching, but I need help. This is where you start. You come into the boot camp. If you know you're ready for coaching, the boot camp is kind of lighter. It's included in the coaching, and you can start and come through it. We have guys going through it.
Boot camp is group style versus one-on-one, individual specific to your business. Which the coaching is.
And we cover the same stuff in both, but on the coaching side, it's more customized around you, but it's also a lot more. On the boot camp, it is kind of the basic fundamentals of organization growth, how to lay a good foundation for you to build on. And a lot of guys use it as kind of a launching point into the coaching, or just come in and give us 12 weeks of growth, get going, get your foundation laid, and we'd love to have you at that. So wanted to put that out there because we're getting that started this week.
Yep.
All right, so jumping into this podcast, what we want to talk about are the different type of companies we coach, and when we coach them, what we coach is not a one-size-fits-all. Do these 280 steps and you're successful as long as you fit into our model. Yeah. We build our model around your company. And that's the difference of us and most coaching companies or anyone out there with a program. We are a coaching system that allows you to customize and build around the core that we have built out.
Yeah, we do. I mean, we have kind of the steps or skeleton of here's kind of how the process is going to flow. Yep. But I don't think that there's anybody that we're coaching that has gone exactly step by step by step by step.
For sure.
Because there's always variables. There's different types of businesses. There are different owners and different personalities. And there's also different hot points and urgencies. You know, there are some that like I don't have any work and I need to figure out how to get work. There are some that like I've got all the work I need, but my finances are a shambles, right? So it's just there's a lot of variables in there. And so we have kind of the skeleton, program of this is what we do and what we walk people through. But there's always kind of specific variables that allow us to kind of dial in on each individual company, and it's a unique process for each company that we're doing. But I think the thing that I would say, kind of moving into the next steps of what we're going to talk about, our coaching is kind of wrapped around the concept of it doesn't matter what product you are delivering. Yeah. It doesn't matter. It is not about the product. It's about the experience of the delivery of that product. Yep. And that is the majority of what we coach on, what we guide and consult with is more about the experience and how you do that. How do you create efficiency in that? How do you get the flooring installed? How do you get the windows installed? How do you do the new kitchen? Like, that's the final product.
Yeah.
What we need to get clarity on is, what's the delivery of that product like?
And that's universal. I
Yeah.
mean, we could coach a smoothie company starting up, right?
That's
We
right.
can the systems that we coach and teach on, which we're about to go through, kind of the 4 main steps of growth of any company.
Yeah.
So this podcast is more than just construction. This is universal in terms of how you're going to grow if you are a business to consumer type of company.
That's right.
Now, B2B is a little bit different, but there's still a customer, it's still the same experience. But we're going to focus on you as a contractor in the construction industry specifically. We have a lot of experience there, but what we're talking about today is kind of baseline, how to understand kind of the steps of growth in any type of company.
Yeah, and the beginning process of kind of understanding that starts with a kind of one of our favorite metaphors that we use a lot, that just adds some clarity. It takes you out of the kind of confusing pieces of the construction world and uses kind of an analogy that helps kind of get clarity on what we're talking about and how to grow and scale the company.
So today, the metaphor that we're going to live on today is our grocery store metaphor. And we've talked about it probably in other podcasts.
Sure. Yeah.
If you've been to one of our events, we start our Jumpstart event, our one-day intensive that we do. We start with this metaphor because it's such a good metaphor. But what we talk about with the grocery store is, imagine you were starting a grocery store. You were getting started, and we use this because we all have the same kind of preconceived notions about construction. So let's go outside of our industry. So with a grocery store, let's talk about you are delivering and selling milk as a company, as a grocery store that's doing it. So what we want you to first understand is milk in the consumer's eyes is the product that they're buying. I am buying milk from you. As the grocery store, as the provider of the person that's selling you that milk, I am the actual delivery of milk itself is about 10% of what I'm doing.
Yeah.
The 90% of my work is finding the dairy farm, negotiating pricing, getting it approved if it needs to be approved by FDA or anywhere else that needs some sort of approval for the milk, going through the delivery, getting it on a refrigerated truck, making sure it stays at a certain temperature the entire time, getting it delivered, having people there to receive it, stocking it into our refrigerators, then pulling it out and putting it on the shelves and then displaying it.
Where is it located in the store? What does it look like? What,
who's printing the display? Who's printing the pricing? How are people going to know we're selling milk?
Yep.
What level? How should we price the milk? Now, someone's coming into our store. I got to make sure that they're impressed by walking in here and they can find the milk easily. Now they go and actually get the milk. We have someone there helping them find it. They bring the milk to the front. I now have to have a cash register, a point of sale system, a way that we get their money, a way that we run credit cards. We have to have bags that we've already. There's a ton of stuff that goes into a person buying 1 gallon of milk, and so
and there's around the corner there's another store that sells milk.
Yep.
Right. And so all of those other things are the things that help that client decide, I'm coming back to this store or not.
Yep. And in that customer's eyes, I went to Clark's grocery store and bought a gallon of milk. That's all I got.
Yeah.
In my eyes, you buying the gallon of milk, that transaction is such a small part of what I'm providing. And I think that's where we get flipped around as contractors and business owners is, you got the milk, why are you complaining?
Right.
I gave you the milk. Well, your store was dirty. The milk was warm, and actually, when I opened it, it had gone sour. There was no bags at the checkout, so I had to carry it by hand to my car. I got there, and online it said you were open at 10, and I got there at 11:30, and the doors were locked. I had to come back to 9. There's all sorts of experiences that the customer has in buying that milk from you that we fall short as contractors in.
Yeah.
And so the 90% of the support to get to the 10% of the money is what we want to focus on.
Right.
Because when you come to us for coaching and where you're at now, you should have a good product. You should be able to deliver milk. It's the 90% around that. Now, if you have terrible milk, if you can't do a kitchen install, if you are terrible at putting HVAC units in, if you don't know how to do electrical and you're starting an electrical company, we can't help you.
It's not much coaching that's going to be able to help you with that.
Yeah, we aren't how to be a GC coach. We are how to build a business.
Yeah.
And so with what we do, we assume that you have a good product. We assume that if we can help you sell it and give the customer experience and build the company, we can duplicate what you currently are and what you're currently selling, then we're going to grow your company into a self-sustaining, long-term organization that's really paying you into retirement,
Right.
and that lasts beyond your lifetime.
Well, and we fortunately we've had a lot of experience with a lot of different types of companies, trade companies, GC companies, and different styles of business. Just from the ones that we're dealing with now, and also our own experience of HVAC companies and service departments and different divisions, and all the different things that we've experienced over the years allows us to have some insight into different types of businesses and industries and whatever. But with that being said, what you just said is what allows us to be able to come along somebody that I've never run or operated a welding company before, right? But I can come alongside a welding company and I can help them get more efficient. I can help them get better at what they do, where the delivery of their product is better. But the only requirement is that person, the welding company, comes to me and they know how to weld and do it well.
Yeah.
Right. It's all the other ancillary things around it that cause the company to get a bad reputation or people not to want to come back and get it.
Yep.
But that concept is what allows us to be able to come alongside and coach and consult with companies that have never done that business, but it's not about the product.
Yep.
It's about the process.
That's right. And so the 4 steps that we go into when we use this metaphor, and what we want you to understand as a company that's either coming into coaching or trying to do it on your own and not ready for coaching, but you want to understand, how do I start growing towards a duplicatable product where I am not hitting a ceiling of what I can do, but can continue on. The first step that we want to do is understand every step of the process from the dairy farm until the person walks out your front door with that gallon of milk.
Yeah.
Right. And so first thing you need to do is understand every single step along the way and lay that out on paper, because if we don't have an instruction manual of how this company operates, how the processes work, there's nothing to tweak, there's nothing to bend, there's nothing to look at and assess and say, hey, that's not working, because look, you're taking delivery from the milk every day at 2 a.m. and there's no one there to catch it. Why are you doing that? It's sitting there getting spoiled every single night, right? And so start identifying some of those holes in that process.
Well, and some clarity on that, like you might get stuck thinking about that, going, okay, I need to write down this perfect process from start to finish of how how the client receives the product from me.
Yep.
Don't worry about creating the perfect process. Just take a moment, get a piece of paper, and literally write down every single step that you can think about, from the first contact when somebody calls you on the phone, somebody connects with you and says, "Hey, I want to work from you," all the way through you've received final payment and everything's done. Just write out how you currently do it.
Yeah.
Right. Once you do that, then you can look at it and go, I like that one. I'm going to keep that one. You know what? There's always a problem. Clients have issues. What could I do differently? And then you can start refining it from there. And that's what we did.
Yeah.
We just, we're going to deliver this product, and it doesn't matter how we do it. We're just going to get it done.
Yeah.
And then we started realizing that there were pitfalls and there were bottlenecks and there were efficiency problems.
What if we tried it this way?
We were doing that and got to the end, and we got a final check. We just didn't make any money.
Yeah.
Right. And so write down the process just as you do it today. Right. And then now you have something to work with, something that you can start refining into a better process.
And Jared's making that sound real simple. It's not a simple task, but the first step is simple. And I think that's where people get caught, is like, it goes kind of different every single time. And it's there's so many different things and there's so many different factors. I don't know this. That's fine. Write down 10 basic steps that you go from start to finish. And then it's going to be an outline. Let's start filling it in. Have a document on your phone, on your computer where it's like, oh, actually I do this. I'm going to put that in here. We recently brought on a company that we're coaching. We met with them, understood their systems, their process, start to finish. We spent 2 days with them laying out their processes to understand exactly how it's going. And some of that is they don't like to tell the truth. And because they don't believe it themselves, right? Well, it goes this way. Well, then you talk to the guy out in the field and it's actually happening a different way, right? And so we spend a lot of time understanding the actual way that things happen because there is one way that it's written that you want your systems to go in a company, and then there's another way that it's executed.
The things that actually happen.
And so we're identifying why it's executed different and how it's being executed. But I say that because we start with laying that all out, and then we spend days, weeks, and months saying, wait, I don't understand. I thought it did this. Well, actually, we usually go through this person. Great. Well, let's change that in what we're writing because that's affecting how this whole system works.
Right.
It is a big task, but take a minute and start the task. When we talk about bite-sized pieces, spend an hour a week on working on your company. This is square one. This is where we need to start. Spend an hour. Try and write it out, and then have it editable. Have it on a computer that you can add in. Oh, I do this. Okay, enter down. I'm going to add that line in. And that way you're starting to build your systems to understand and have a visual of exactly how your product's being delivered. And it might be great. It might be perfect. It might not need a ton of tweaking. But the tweaking that we do after we get it working well is going to be our next steps on this, which is tweaking it to where it is duplicatable as opposed to it's just working from your brain. Right. So step 2 that we have is work to get your current grocery store delivering the milk the same way every time. Right. And what I want when I'm sitting with Jared and I'm talking about Jared's grocery store and his milk delivery that he's doing and making sure that he can sell the best quality milk every single time the same way is when I'm looking at his process and he's like, well, whenever this happens, I think about it and I call this person. Whenever we get down to only 10 gallons left in the case, I pick up the phone and I call the supplier at the dairy farm.
Right.
If that's part of the process, that's where we start refining, saying, well, Jared, what happens if you get hit by a truck tomorrow? Well, then nobody's going to order milk. Okay, great. So let's write down when and how we do that and set it up to where it doesn't have to be dependent on your brain making that decision.
And it also changes it from just being reactive to proactive managing of it.
Well, and what we start finding when you start doing that, and it's easier for Jared's brain to identify, hey, we need to order milk, and then going and order the milk. It's easier that way. It works that way. It's worked that way for 10 years. But Jared's come to us saying, hey, I need some help because I've hit a ceiling. I sell 10 gallons of milk a day. I can't sell any more. I'm maxed out. I'm working 60 hours a week. I can't sell any more than that because I don't have any additional time.
Right.
Well, that's because we're selling Jared's brain as the time. And so we can't duplicate his brain or expand his brain. So we've hit a ceiling in the company as this is as much as we can do as a company because this is as much as Jared can process through his brain. And if he can get us another 10 hours a week, maybe we sell a couple more gallons.
Right.
But
that's the big piece of it.
You're getting maxed out, and so we can't duplicate you. And the other flaw that we find when we start breaking down people's processes is I say, hey, Jared, okay, you've hired 7 people to work in your grocery store. How does Bob at the counter know to do this? Well, he comes and asks me.
Right.
Okay, well, how does Steve over there know to do this? Well, whenever I tell him to do this, then he does it. And so we realize it's not 7 people that are running their different 7 jobs to get the milk delivered and sold. It's Jared with 7 assistants that are still just passing everything through his brain.
I'm the conductor.
He is the conductor in this orchestra, and no one can jump until Jared says so. And so there's this chain of command that is not really there because it's really a hierarchy of 1, Jared, and then everybody does what he says. And then it also gets confusing because the checkout guy wants to move the milk from aisle 1 to aisle 2 because it's closer to checkout. And Jared's like, great, that sounds good. Well, the guy who's stocking the shelves didn't get that information, right? And so the guy stocking the shelves starts stocking aisle 1
in the old location,
right? And so then Jared comes in to aisle 2 and the milk's not there. I got to order some more milk, right? And so there's no set process as to how we make these decisions, who's making what decision, who gets authority to make those decisions, who's in charge and responsible for each one of these decisions along the process. And when I do make a decision, who all is that going to affect, right? That's where we start really getting into the nitty-gritty with your process, is understanding now that this is the way that we understand and know how you're running your processes to deliver your product. What are the inefficiencies, and where can we make a single person responsible in these different decisions, and how do we let Jared pass the ability to make those decisions to others? And that's where we get a lot of pushback, because guys want to be the guy. I want to be the man. I want to make all the decisions. I want everyone to come to me. I'll let you know when we're ready to do the next thing. And we got to say, you got to trust your team, and you got to, along with trust, you got to keep them accountable, and we have to have these accountability meetings to ensure that they're making the right decisions. But you got to let them make those decisions.
Well, and that's I think that's a great point, because we run into a lot of people that are running companies, and they're trying to do their best. And as we start uncovering and asking questions, and tell me about your personality, and tell me why you do this and all that, what we find is that a large majority of people that are entrepreneurs that are in charge of a business are control freaks. They want to be in control of everything, which there's pros and cons to that. But more importantly, they need to be the guy in charge. They like that. They like the way it feels that everybody needs me, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. If you want to run a business that way, that's okay. But there's a cap. It's in direct conflict to your ability to grow, because growth means that you have to grow beyond yourself. You have to grow beyond your capability. Right. And to be able to do that, you have to back away, and you have to be able to delegate. Right. If again, like you said, I'm going to double down, and I'm going to work harder. I'm going to put in 10 extra hours every single week, and I might get 1 or 2 gallons of milk more out the door, but I am burning myself out. And I'm getting 2 extra gallons, and I'm running as hard as I can possibly run. I'm not going to make it long term. Because week over week, you just look at it and go, well, I have to continue doing the extra 10 hours, right? But if you start working to create the process, that's where we go into this next spot, where I now can start replicating and duplicating what I'm doing in somebody else.
That's right. So step 1, like we said, is I want to get the step-by-step of how the product goes from dairy farm to in the trunk of the car of the person buying it. Step 2 is I want to make sure every step of that process is done the same way every single time, and that it's not running through one person's brain to make the decisions. I want triggers. I want set times, and this happens when this happens. I want a domino effect to where we don't have things fall through the cracks because Jared forgot, it fell out of his brain, and he forgot to make that order. So I want all of those things set up for step 2, to where Jared's delivering the product the same way every single time, and I can test them on it. When this happens, what happens there? Great. When that happens, what happens here? Great. And so we know exactly how the process works efficiently and duplicatably, to where it's not all running on Jared's shoulders, except that he's the one doing all the steps.
Right.
That's the only reason it's all on his shoulders. Step 3 that we move into is, all right, there are 10 steps in delivering this milk. Who can we hire to do the first 5? And Jared's going to do the second 5. Or Jared likes and is really good at the first 5. So let's hire someone for the second 5, right? Let's say Jared has really good salesmanship, good at talking people into the product, good at pricing it, which is most of us entrepreneurs starting companies.
Right.
But Jared's not good at ordering. Jared's not good at keeping the finances, understanding these payments come in, I got to pay the farmer this. Jared doesn't understand the back end. I'm going to hire someone for Jared that does that first 5 steps.
Right.
They are in charge of systematically, when we get down to X amount of milk on the shelves, you make the next order. At this point, this person gets paid out of this way, and this is how the delivery goes. I need you to dot every I, cross every T, make sure the milk is there in a really good display. I need you to make sure that the milk is not sour and is fresh. I need you to make sure that we're ordering from the right people. I'm going to sell the milk. This is the processes that you have to follow, and I'm hiring you to do these first 5 processes. Right. And so we hire that first person that's doing that. We train them up, and we trust them and verify they're doing what they're supposed to do.
But you also have a way to train them because you've spent the time to write out your process. Then you've worked on your process to make sure that you can replicate it every single time.
Yep.
And so now I've got, the first 5 steps, I've got it built out. So now I have a place of accountability of here's how I'm going to train you. These are the 5 steps you're in charge of. Here's how you do them. Here's how you execute them. You're accountable to doing it this way.
Yep.
Right.
Well, and where we come in and help as coaches that you can take with you. If I come in and I'm consulting with Jared, I'm like, Jared, how do you know when to reorder more milk? And he goes, well, I'm standing at the cash register checking people out.
Yeah.
I kind of know that when we get down 10 or 11 gallons, I'm going to go check and we're short some and I'm going to go ahead and order it. Right. And so I say, okay, Jared, you kind of know when to do that. How do we write it down to where we can teach someone this is the process, pass
Who doesn't
or fail,
have that instinct.
right? And so I can say, when we get down to only X amount of gallons sitting in the refrigerator, that's what triggers in our system to go ahead and make the next order, right? And so then I train the next person, pass or fail. If we say 20 gallons in the refrigerator, we got to order new, and we're down to 10, you have failed at your job. What's going on? What do I need to help you to understand that you dropped the ball because this is a you issue or is this a system issue, right? And so we start breaking that down to where it's not Jared knowing to do something as the owner, right? It's not like, to put it back into construction terms, Jared orders materials on his job sites when he knows he needs to. When you train a project manager, they don't know they need to until it's too late.
Right.
So what is the systems that we're writing down that's going to trigger the ordering of materials when that job is getting started, right? And we're going to train them on that and hold them accountable to that trigger in that system to where it's a pass-fail. It's not a you idiot. It's a, interesting, you're supposed to do this on Monday, and it's now Thursday and it's not happening. What happened in your brain to make that not happen?
Well, and also based on those systems and processes are built off of experience, right? And so this new person who's ordering, in charge of once it gets to 20 gallons of milk, you got to reorder. They don't know what happens when you drop below 20. Right? They don't know that if I drop below 20, that means within 24 hours I'm going to be out of milk, and it takes 36 to get new milk. Right. And so then I'm going to have people coming in the store and I got nothing to offer them. But they don't know that piece of it. They don't know that, well, I mean, I know it said 20, but I'm going to keep rolling. I'll do it tomorrow, after we get down to 15 or, 12 gallons. Right. Well, they don't know all the information. And so there is going to be a learning curve. They're going to find out real quick. But that's one of the pieces when you do delegate something out to somebody, there's a reason why it's set up a certain way. Right. And most of that is based off of experience. If it's not done this way, here's the consequences and what's going to happen.
There's a lot of macho online guys, some internet trolls, contractors that you see in those forums on Facebook, on our videos. You'll see a lot of this, like, well, I do it this way and I'm killing it and blah blah blah. That's great. You might be really good at calling and getting the milk, bringing it into the store and delivering the product, but there's only so much milk you can sell that way. And that's in your head, and your process might be great. That's fine. That's awesome. It's not duplicatable. And so that's what we're trying to help with, of your process isn't broken. It's just not the right direction if you want to duplicate. Now, if you just want to hustle, sell 10 gallons a day and collect money and retire on the money that you saved, great. You don't need us. If you've got a really good system and it's sitting there and you're happy with the money you're making and you're happy with the amount of hours you're working,
Rock it out.
No problem.
Keep going.
What we want to do is set up this grocery store to where it's duplicatable. We can hire people in, and then we go to step 4, which is expanding the store. And we're going to talk about that next week, is how to expand your store, because there's 4 different ways to expand what you're doing in your company. We're going to dive into those next week. But the first 3 steps walking up to before being able to expand what you're doing is I need to make sure that from every touch that my customer has, from the ad they saw, walking in the door, finding the milk, buying the milk, getting to the front, checking out, having a nice day, walking to the car, is down perfectly, and there's no kink in that in that armor. That everything that happens is duplicatable and replicatable every single time a customer comes to buy my milk.
Yeah.
Until I get there, I can't hire anyone.
Well, and we'll get into more of this next week. But a part of the reason for that is that you know, if you're looking and having the idea of expanding in some form or fashion, you need to make sure that what is operating is requiring less and less of your time.
Yeah.
Right? To be able to expand, you're going to have to avert attention. And so you need to make sure just because you have an opportunity to expand doesn't mean it's the right time to expand.
Well,
right?
That's really good, because my final point that I wanted to mention is, if you are new with us in our coaching program, if you're thinking about coming in our coaching program, or if you're at a spot that you're like, I'm ready to grow.
Right.
The hardest part for us when we get with our new clients is, I'm making $500,000 a year. I'm killing it. I just need to hire people and expand. How do I do that? Well, the problem is, you're still on step one, and you're killing it by yourself in your brain.
You're still selling you.
But your processes are not duplicatable. And so we come in and we say, hey, it's great. You're making $500K in profit a year. That's amazing. You're doing great. You can stay there, or we can tear your processes apart, and it's going to take a while to rebuild them in a way that's duplicatable, so you can make 500 here and 500 at the next store and 500 at the next store and be making 1.5.
Right.
It's going to take 3 years to get there, though.
Yep.
Right. And so we start looking at it and saying, what you are coming to us for is expansion, and what we need to do is rebuild the foundation. You're looking to put a second
We need to
story.
create the ability to expand.
Yes, you've built a great house, and you're coming to us saying, hey, I want to put 3 stories on top of it.
Yeah.
You didn't build a foundation to hold that weight. And so what we need to do is rebuild some of the foundation, and it's going to be hard, and it's going to take some sweat equity from you to get it to that spot. We're going to rebuild that foundation to where we can build a gigantic super mall on top of that foundation, as opposed to just one little house. We're going to build a condominium on that foundation, but we have to lay a different foundation. Now, a lot of stuff you've done, we're going to keep.
Yeah.
But there's some critical areas that we have to redo. So a lot of what we do with guys in the beginning, and it's not sexy. It's, hey, you're going to pause and you're not going to grow yet because we got to rebuild a foundation.
Yeah.
And they don't love it. But then a year and a half in, they're like, oh my gosh, this is great.
Yeah.
I'm making more than I've ever made, working less than I've ever worked, and this is working, right? Because you laid the right foundation.
Well, and going back to the grocery store analogy, to kind of expound on that, a lot of the companies that come to us and are wanting to get into coaching, and they have that conversation of like, hey, I just want to expand. I just want to hire somebody. So when the client comes to the front of the store, they're meeting them outside.
Yeah.
And they're walking them in and they're telling them about the store, and what are you looking for? Milk? Great. Come back here, follow me. They go, they open the door for them, they get the milk, they take them up to the cash register, they talk to the person at the cash register, and they walk them out the door.
Yeah.
Right? And the entire experience is incredible.
Yeah.
Right? And so that client is telling other people about your store, saying, hey, you go in there and George just like helps you out, he walks you around and all this stuff. But that entire experience is reliant on you.
Yeah.
Right. And because you get this great reputation, because, people are like, dude, it's so great going in there because George treats you so well. You think, oh, I could make more money if I could just have a second store.
Yeah.
If I could have another person. And so what they do is they hire somebody else and they say, hey, I want you to meet people at the front of the store and walk them through and get the whole thing done. And they do it. And they're like, oh, where was the milk? I don't remember where the milk. And there's no system and process to do that. And all of a sudden they look up and this person they hired is like not treating people well. They're distracted. They take them to the wrong area of the store, whatever it is, right? And he's like, okay, here's what I want you to do. Just follow me around and do what I do.
Yeah.
And that process doesn't work. You have to have what is it that I do? Why is it that I do it this way? And let's spell that out so that I can bring somebody in and say, all I need you to do is work this process. Mm-hmm. This is how we do it, right? And then you bring in people that can follow that process, not people that have the same mindset as you.
Yeah.
You're never going to find them. And we say that 1,000 times throughout our podcast, but you're never going to find somebody that is going to walk somebody through your store to purchase what they want the same way that you do it. Because they're an employee, they're not an owner.
A great example of what you're saying, like Flo's grocery store, right? Jared Flo's grocery store. Everyone's saying, oh, talk to Jared. He meets you in the parking lot. He gets you everything you need. You got to talk to Jared.
Yeah.
They're buying Jared. They're not buying Flo's grocery store.
Right.
And so we want to switch that to where they don't buy Jared. Jared's great. He's amazing. He's the owner. You got to go to Flo's. Flo's grocery store is the place to go. And what you just said, I meet them in the parking lot. I walk them through. When you're training someone to start running Flo's grocery store, you don't realize going out into the parking lot to greet people and standing at the door needs to be written down and trained.
Yeah.
What you're like, okay, let me show you. This is how we stock them. This is how we do this. When they come in and buy it, this is how we check them out. That's what most people train on. They don't have written processes. You stand at the front door till your first customer comes in. You ask them these questions, and we send them here.
Yeah.
Once they're there, then they do the next thing, right? Because that's the stuff that you naturally do as a good salesman, as a good business owner. Is I'm going to do as much as I can to make this business good. And when you hire employees, the nature of the beast is that they're going to do as least as they can to check the boxes.
Their perspective is different.
Yep.
It just is going to be different,
Yep.
right? And so their mode of operation is going to be different.
Yep.
That you might get somebody who's a great person who just their thought is, well, the client's showing up. They're going to come inside. If they want something, they can ask.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's true. Right. But it's not how you want your store run.
Yeah.
Right. It's not what makes your store stand apart from something else.
That's right.
Right. So I just, from what you just said, taking it back into the metaphor, that's a lot of times what we end up with, guys saying, I want to expand. I've got opportunity of business. I'm just going to hire somebody.
Yeah. My first grocery store is killing it. I want to start a second one.
Yep.
Well, when you leave, because you can only be in one place at a time,
Yeah.
the first one's going to fail.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think,
one of the clarifying questions that we ask people, like, let me ask you a question. So what happens if you take a week off?
Yeah.
What happens in the business? Well, nothing. I mean, if I'm not there, nothing's happening. Then you're not ready to hire.
yeah.
Right.
Sure.
I mean, that's just, you've got to figure out what your systems and processes are. If you've got an employee
Yeah.
and you take a vacation and things don't work because they've got to be calling you and you're on your phone all the time, the entire thing like that. Let's pause on hiring somebody. Let's define your process first.
I think a good litmus test for that also, if you have a project manager, if you have an employee, office manager, are you making decisions daily with them on the phone? Are you talking every single day and downloading every job every day? Or can you do once a week meetings for an hour every Friday?
Yeah.
Now, you might talk throughout the week just for support, morale, cultural, I got someone in my corner. But can we have one meeting a week and cover everything we need? Because you know what's expected of you. I've got a way to judge and criticize what you have done and give you constructive criticism on how we're going to do it better next week. But can we have a 1 hour meeting every Friday and you know exactly what you should be doing and how you're being judged? If you can do that, you're going in the right direction.
Right.
So I think that's all good stuff. Getting to the spot to expand the company is where we want to walk you up to, and then from there it's wash, rinse, repeat.
Yep.
And we're going to talk about that next week. We got 4 different ways to expand your company, to expand what you're doing and how you're doing it and make more money. But we also want to start with this episode because the first 3 steps are the most important because you can't expand without the foundation there to build on.
Yep.
Thank you so much for listening. If you want to talk to us about coaching, Jared and I would love to get on a phone call with you. Go to the contact us at prostruct360.com. Love to talk with you. Shoot us an email if you have questions, if we can answer anything, if you have suggestions for show ideas, we'd love to hear those. Or if you want to hop on a call and hear more about how the coaching works, or I'm not ready for coaching, but I got a question about this.
Yeah,
let us help you.
Glad to help with that.
We're here for the long term with you.
Yeah.
So thanks so much for listening. We'll talk to you next week.
See ya.